So I've been around horses my entire life, even before being adopted and coming to the ranch. My mom used to work at a dude ranch in Denver, and that's actually where I made my first money. Is I was 6 or 7 years old, and this mom came to the ranch down there, and her little boy was bored, and so I took him down and taught him how to catch and lead a pony. And his mom loved it and was so appreciative that she gave the ranch $20, and the owner let me get to keep it because I had earned it.
6
so
years old.
at 6 years old, I had earned my first $20 with horses. And so horses have always been a part of my life.
Was that your first $20 right there?
Yeah, it was my first $20.
There you go.
Yeah, 6 or 7. And then fast forward until I was 11, being adopted to the ranch, and then that is a completely different ball game. Being on a dude ranch, you're on a trail ride, you're riding single file. Horses are treated a little bit different, and then coming to the ranch, and you're out in the mountains on rugged terrain, going over water and logs and brush and getting scratched up, and that was definitely an education. But after coming to the ranch, I learned so much more about horses and loved them even more.
And so was it at that point just a couple of working horses? Because now you've got like, I don't know how many horses, like 10?
We have 10 right now, yeah.
Okay. And back then, was it still like that many or just a few?
At the dude ranch?
No, at Harding.
Oh, yeah. We've always had lots of horses because... So chasing cows on the mountain, it's hard on a horse. And so if one gets sore, if one, goes lame or something, you have to be able to switch to another horse. You can't continue riding him. And so we've always had extras. And then we used to have a team of horses. He used to hay with them and feed with them. And so we had a team of horses, which is another ball game because you're driving instead of riding.
And I guess that's the big difference between your horses and other horses, because you guys saw me ride for like 2 minutes on a horse.
That was riding?
He sat on a horse.
He took the words out of my mouth. Okay, first of all, well, what was I don't even know what I was going to say. Okay, I'm not an expert, but I've done it a little bit. Oh, that's what I was going to say. So I've done it a little bit, and I actually got to do a cattle run for my brother was a cowboy for a while, and he wanted some help, and he's like, "What do you want to do? Do you want a horse or do you want like a 4-wheeler?" And I was like, "No, I'll get on a horse. Like I don't know what I'm doing."
He had never before sat on a horse.
I've sat on horses. I've done like
sat on a horse. Okay, sure.
Oh,
he had never ridden, and his brother hands him a horse.
Okay, hold on.
To move cattle.
Hold on, because I'm making a point here. Jeez Louise. I rode horses
Todd knows.
at the beach on vacation.
That is cool.
So I did that. Okay, so it's not the first time I've been on a horse, but granted, I don't know what I'm doing, but I knew I felt comfortable doing it. And so I did.
Didn't know what he was doing.
So I did that. Yeah, because maybe that's just I'm idiotic.
Ignorance is bliss.
Ignorance is confidence, apparently. So I did the day, and that horse was telling me what to do. She was like, I was like, "Hey, go this way," and the horse wouldn't move because there was a cow that I hadn't seen over here, and so she was like looking over here. I'm like, trying to get this horse to go this direction, and she wasn't budging, and she just looked over. She was looking over here. I'm like, "What's the deal?" And I looked over there and I said, "Oh, let's go." I said, I just said the words, "Let's go," and she took me to where the problem is so she could solve it.
Horses know their job and love their job.
When they're trained, right?
When they're trained. We were just talking about this morning that Cash, one of the horses that we have for sale right now, he loves the arena work so much that he will use his maneuvers in the pasture against the other horses. So they were playing, and he'll like sidestep over to get in position, or one will be behind him and he'll hurry up and spin. And he uses those maneuvers in his everyday life because he loves his job. And so a well-trained horse does know their job. They get excited about it. And just it's fun to watch when they're trained like that. The one thing that my pet peeve when you were telling that story is...
You said you were riding.
Even though that horse saw that cow and obviously knew that you were wrong, you asked it to do something else. And so... even though it knew you didn't know anything and we need to go after that cow, a well-trained horse should go when and where and how fast you ask it to anytime, whether it thinks you're wrong or not.
Well, I'm gonna give this horse a pass because I think there should be an exclusion clause for like if the person riding you is really this bad at their job.
And I think the other thing to remember is he asked the horse, you're assuming that he directed the horse in any way that the horse could understand. My guess is it might have been English and a suggestion.
But see, I was talking to the horse. Okay, so maybe she's right about a few points here. I was talking to the horse, and it was crazy. Like, and because you say, hey, they speak English, and it's crazy. They speak English, or at least they hear English. I don't know. I've never talked to a horse in Spanish, so I gotta try that next time. See what happens if I start talking in session. But the reason I was telling you that story is because so that was my bar for horses, right? That was like my first real experience, and then I wanted to go ride trail riding this horse somewhere else, and this person was like, you can ride the horse, but you can't take them on the trail because they'll get scared by branches and they'll get scared by trees and get scared by. I was like, what the hell kind of horse is that?
An unexperienced one.
Yeah. And I think that's a difference between what you're talking about with what you do versus, these other horses that maybe they can sit on sand and do tricks on sand. But okay, so let's talk about how you get a horse to be that instead of the one that's just walking on sand.
So a horse knows its job, and so it's just like a kid. If you put a kid in an environment that's familiar with, he's going to do great. But if you put in an environment he's not familiar with, he's going to be nervous, and that's not really his fault. He's never been there. So one thing that we do when they are young, when we're not even starting them yet, is they're in the pasture with the other horses, and the older horses show them, this is how you cross a creek. And they're in pastures that have brush and logs, and they learn like, oh, these things aren't going to hurt me with the other horses. And so that's before we even touch them. And so then it's not a struggle as much. But then it is wet saddle blankets. And you'll hear cowboys say that a lot. Wet saddle blankets just mean experience. Go out and ride him, and he might freak out the first time. He might freak out the second time. The third time, he'll be fine with it. And he'll get to a point, people use the word desensitizing. I don't think it's taking his senses away as much as just making him familiar. Like when something touches me, it's, oh, whatever, it's fine. This log, oh, I've crossed hundreds of these. It's okay. This water, nothing's jumped out at me before. This is going to be fine. And so it is just taking the time. Every day, there's a friend of mine who's teaching me, trying to further my education on try to make a horse, we call it fancy. So a ranch horse, he moves cows, and he's in the mountain, and he might rope, but the horses you see spinning and sliding, that's reining, and that's more of a fancy horse. And so I'm trying to get there. And so he's trying to teach me more of that. And he said it is better to spend 10 minutes a day with a horse every day than an hour every 2 weeks. And that is so true. The more time you spend this horse just doing little things, having your child play underneath him, or having him tied to the barn where you're working with a tarp or a ladder, all that stuff is getting him just used to people are around me, they're going to do things, and it's okay.
Yeah, just to because you're right, you don't want them to be desensitized and not know what's happening, but the opposite, you want them to know, hey, this tarp is not going to bite you.
Exactly.
It's just on the ground. You're going to be okay.
I think that's a beautiful thing about what you're offering, because you're putting that much time and effort into these horses for somebody, because they might not have the time to start when they're young and spend every day getting them used to all of these things and making them comfortable. You're doing that work for them. You're making their partner.
Yeah, making your partner. There's one of my favorite videos that I think we have on our Instagram is we're in the mountain cutting trail, and it is a terrible trail, and there's lots of brush, lots of just bad things that horses get used to, but it takes a certain person and a certain horse to do it. And this video is of 3 or 4 horses, and I think you are cutting the trail, and the video is these horses, 2 of them being ridden, and 2 of them nobody's touching, and they're just following along, just like a walk in the park. Like, I don't need to worry about anything. When they step up, I step up. And that's just their day is, you know what? The chainsaw's running right by my head, and it's okay.
Now, is that a unique upbringing for a horse to be like on a ranch like that, or do I guess I'm wondering how common is it for a horse to get that kind of an experience?
Ranch horses, that experience is very common. A horse that is used every day, a using horse is one word that he uses. That's very common. And the older a ranch horse is, the more steady they are. So a ranch horse, there's a reason why he's a steady ranch horse, and that term, that it's there for a reason.
I would back up with what you started this conversation with. We choose horses that have a mind. We choose a horse. We buy babies. We buy weaners or yearlings or something. But the horse that we select, we look at their mind. You can't really do much with them when they're little guys like that, but you know what kind of a mind that they have. So, you could take a thoroughbred off the track and try to use them for what we're trying to do and probably wouldn't be very successful. You could take an Arab horse that's bred to run a 100-mile endurance race and probably not be very successful with the way that we use them. And vice versa, if you took our horses and tried to run 100 miles with them, that's not what they're bred for. And the racetrack, that's not what they're bred for. So our horses are bred, they're quarter horses, and they are bred to do what we want them to do. And they are selected from that quarter horse breed. They are selected because of their mind. They choose not to be dumb. You can get them to think things through rather than to run. A horse's first instinct when they're scared or they think they're in danger is to run. They are a prey animal, and they're very fast, and their feet are they run. That's what they're bred for. So you kind of have to change their mind a little bit. When danger is around, when that chainsaw is running under their feet, their mind tells them that they're okay, that they're all right. But it comes from breeding. It comes from them being babies. It comes from the kind of horses that we choose.
So you must spend quite a bit of time choosing them, spending time with them, assessing them. And
we do.
The difference between our horses and that common ranch horse that is steady is our horses not only are steady ranch horses, but they're doing it at a younger age. They're not 18 when they're that steady. They're 4 or 5, and my son can be on them. We have a horse right now. His name is Gunstock, and he's just a big puppy dog. Oren was the first person to ride him, and he rode him bareback, and he's an unbroke horse. That's that mind.
Wow.
And it's not necessarily the experience on the mountain yet. It's just experience around us. And so the ranch horse is common, but how we do it, I feel like, is a little unique because we're doing it at a young age when they're not even halter broke yet, just getting them used to everything.
keep going, you're good.
And like you said, Stephanie, about picking them and taking that time. When we picked these particular horses, I pet them. I wanted to know how they let me catch them and me do it instead of the guy selling them, just to see how they reacted around me. And that uniqueness, that individual horse is what I like. I like to take a horse and spend time with him, a lot of time with him, and learn who he is, because even though horses don't feel human emotions, they are still unique animals, each one of them. And so each one of them has things that they absolutely do not like, and that's just him. And there's things that he does not mind, even though other horses do. And there's things that he loves, and the other horse would rather do this. I have a horse that he is great at learning. He learns faster than any of the others, and he loves to go to work. He just loves working, but he doesn't really want to be a pet.
Now, do you get the impression, like, if I was, I don't know what I'm doing, if I was going to buy a horse, like, I would not be the expert, right? So if I'm going to a place that's selling, like a horse sale, and they've got a bunch of different people selling horses, do you think that the average person selling a horse there is putting this much time and thought into selecting the horses and training them, or how does that normally work? Like, what's the culture for horse sales?
So now you're getting into some can of worms a little bit.
Okay.
So horse sales, it depends on where you are and the person. There are some trash horse sales, and there are people who aren't horse trainers, they are horse traders. And so you have people who are buying horses, riding them for 2 weeks and taking them to the next sale, or 2 months and taking them to the next sale. But then you have people who spend the time with this horse, has had them for more than a year, and really knows what they're selling. And that's the horse you want to buy. You want, when you go to the person selling and say, tell me about your horse, and they don't really know the horse, or they can't really match it with you because, well, you know, I've actually only ridden this horse twice. You don't want that. And so somebody who's had this horse more than a year and knows this horse can say, this is how he is. And I can reassure you that this is how he's going to be. And he might have this flaw, just so you know, and that's just who he is. But these are his strengths, and what do you do for a living? What do you do for recreation? And yeah, this horse will fit you. Or actually, no, he won't.
So that the person who's buying this horse isn't getting something that they didn't sign up for, and that because you care about these animals, like
do.
you're not just trying to make a buck here. You're actually care about them as individual creatures. And
I'm trying to make a buck. Let's be clear on that.
and that's fine too. But you want to make sure, and I think I know Todd feels the same way, that they're going to the right person.
Exactly.
And that they're not going to be mismatched.
I think something that I've just in the little experience that I've had with people selling horses is that just listening to Amanda, she's very specific about this horse. This horse does this, does not like this, really loves this. These are strengths and weaknesses where I find often you have the world of like generally, like they just speak in general terms and they like non-committal, you know, as far as answering questions about a horse because they don't actually know. So someone might try to answer your questions, but I think the more specific questions and the more detailed you get, you can find, oh, is this someone like Amanda who puts a lot of time in, or are they just trying to sell this horse and skip over that every horse has its strengths and weaknesses.
My goal is when you take that horse home, I want him to be your partner. I want you to fall in love with him. Whether you're a man or a woman or a child, you need to fall in love with this horse. This needs to be your partner. I want you to say, this is my horse. I don't want you to go home and say, this is not what I wanted, or this doesn't fit, or, you know, he's all right, but I'll let somebody else ride him. He'll be my extra. I want him to be your main horse. I want him to be that horse that people call a heart horse. I want him to, like, when he dies, I want you to cry. I want you to love this horse so much. And so if I lie to you and tell you things that you just want to hear, or if I don't spend that time so I can't match you up, then I'm not going to do my goal.
So, go ahead.
We're going to sell how many horses a year?
Thinking 1 or 2 a year.
And there's people that sell 21 or 2 a year or even more. And I guess there's nothing wrong with that, with selling more horses. I don't mean to say, I'm not trying to take away anything from anybody, but the horses that leave our place are 1 or 2. I mean, 1 or 2 a year. They would be our main horse. They would be the horse that we would ride every day on the mountain, or as often as we could on the mountain. I don't know. Expand
It's quality.
on that.
It's quality. We want quality over quantity. We want you to say, they said this, and I can believe it. And, of course, they're horses. They're living beings. And so, of course, he's going to have an off day, or, of course, he's going to be in a new place. He's going to be uncomfortable. So whoever is buying these horses do need to give them some patience. Like, let them readjust to their environment and you. And if you give them that patience and let them know you can trust them, they'll be that same horse they were for me.
What's the difference between a really high-end, you know, somebody goes and buys himself, you know, an $80,000-$90,000 horse? What's the difference between that horse and a horse that costs, you know, 30, like, or what should be the difference between that and a horse that's 30 grand or half the price?
In my opinion, a horse that is worth the money, that high-priced horse, should be a horse that you don't have to feel cautious around. You don't have to tiptoe around him, kind of ease, like, are you going to be okay with this? You should just be able to walk and do whatever you need, and he's right there with you.
You should be able to squeeze through his legs with a
Exactly.
dog while running around.
Exactly. The dog get in a fight and they run under your legs, or my little nephew, we were in the field and he doesn't know anything about horses, and he ran under one of the colts, and they're not used to that, but they did fine because they know, you know what, I trust these people. They are weirdos. They do weird things, and we're okay.
Yeah, that was such a fun video. If you haven't seen it, you have to go to Amanda's Instagram, where she's doing I don't know if it's a backflip. I don't know what to call that. Like just a.
She rolled off, flipped off. I don't know, somersault off.
Yeah, and then when I went back and watched it, I didn't realize, but the dog was right there by his feet, like walking around, and the horse was just nobody's holding the horse. He's just hanging out.
I love when she was trying to, crawl between the legs, because he obviously was not. He was like, "Why are you doing this?" But he just let her. Like he's just like.
And that was the first time we'd ever done that.
Yeah.
You guys said, "Can we?" And I said, "Let's find out."
That was great. My favorite thing is you getting stuck down there. And I think, is that George or Cash?
That's George.
And he's just standing there, like not even looking down. He's just like, what is going on today?
And that's that high priced horse is
Right.
You know what? You guys are weirdos, but sure, go for it. And you don't have to be cautious. You don't have to worry about your kid around it. Like, oh, well, don't do this around that horse. Or people say, like, don't walk behind horses. Or I lean on the butt of my horse. Like, you should be able to do whatever you want with that horse and be okay.
Yeah, and that was something that, because I'm learning a lot more the more I'm working at the ranch, and I'd had people who had horses like never walk behind this horse, like that's the most dangerous thing you could do. And then so that was that, and then now working at Harding Ranches where I have like these horses that are just like incredible. It's like I have to retrain my brain. It's like, oh, these guys don't care. like it's these horses are fine, and it's such a bizarre. It's a bizarre thing to think about, that you can have animals that are so well trained and their experience, maybe their upbringing is a better word than training, but they're experienced enough to where, know, okay, like I can be calm around these guys, and there's dogs barking and all kinds of stuff, and they're just super calm.
And it's not that we never put them in an uncomfortable situation. They are in uncomfortable situations all the time, and it's them learning to deal with that uncomfortable that makes them who they are. Because it's not like we're not
You're not avoiding
situations. Not avoiding them, bad situations. We're not babying them. They go in some terrible places and some terrible situations, and they have to learn that it's okay. And I trust these people. These people are good leaders. They've never steered me wrong. Have we gotten in trouble? Absolutely. Have we gotten in places that the horse is totally freaked out? Yeah. Do I wish I would have gotten in some of those places? No. But the horse knows, I trust this lady. She'll get us out of it.
And I guess that's what, if somebody's buying a horse, really that's what they're paying for, is they're paying for the fact that you took them on that mountain and then you got in a tricky situation and you showed this horse, hey, you're going to be fine. You're going to get out of this alive. and everything's okay. And you had the rough days. And so somebody can take this horse and they could just, have fun with them or whatever. I don't know if they're working with them or having fun but you've put in that effort and you've given them those experiences so that they can be calm and be productive. So what is, so you take them out on the mountain, like what's kind of like their duties out there? Like, what do they do? What get themselves into?
So we have a forest permit. So our cow-calf operation in the summertime, our mama cows, our pairs go to the mountain with their calves, and we have to take care of them. And so there's different pastures, and so we have to move them to what pasture they're supposed to be when. So the horses are moving cows. So sometimes that's an hour, and sometimes that's 19 miles. That's Coal Creek to the bottom there. It's 19 miles. And that's a long ways, and it's steep, and there is all sorts of terrain. And so that's one of their duties. We cut trail, and so some of them might have to wear a pack saddle, and some of them might be the lead horse, and so he'll have to lead everybody else. And we cut trail, and so that's a chainsaw cutting logs. So there's falling trees. There is trees and sticks being thrown. There is a chainsaw running right there by their heads, and they have to be okay with that. And then there's hauling salt, packing salt, and so another pack saddle, and they have to be okay with that weight on there. And so packing salt, cutting trail, chasing cows, That's pretty much their job on the mountain.
We also do fence. Fence teaches them to be patient. We load all of our tools and material on them, and literally you walk 5 feet and wire a stay, and walk 5 feet and wire a stay. And I tuck my lead horse. I'll just put his bridle rein or lead rope in my belt loop and walk ahead, whether I'm cutting a trail or working on fence. If I'm going to work on fence all day, obviously they're tied to a tree, but if I know I'm just going to be just a few minutes, they have to learn to stand in a row, and maybe we'll take 4 or 5 horses, the two of us, and so one horse is tied to another horse that I'm leading behind my horse, and that teaches them patience. It teaches them that there's going to be noise, there's going to be all those obstacles that Amanda said, and life is generally going to be okay.
And there's things under their feet, and working with fence, there's going to be wire under their feet, and horses are not a fan of wire. And so learning not to freak out or jump or pull when there's wire is important for a horse, because if they ever do get stuck in wire, they'll know to stay. Just don't move, and we'll get you out of it.
What a beautiful experience for somebody who's buying these horses, because obviously most people, well, I should say most, but I don't know who's buying the horses, but I would think if you're buying this horse, you don't necessarily have to take them on this trail. Like you're not going to take them through these extreme situations. You can have this horse and just know, okay, my kid running around them is going to be fine, and I can maybe just enjoy them in the arena. And that's going to be the easiest day this horse has ever had. And there's nothing you're going to do in an arena where this horse is going to freak out. Mm-hmm. And that's the opposite. Cause I mean, the little bit that I've done, that is a concern, even just in arenas, like some horses can't handle like the tiniest little thing. And I guess that's the difference between a really amazing horse and one that's just maybe kind of less experienced, is that one can go do these incredible things on a mountain and then come back and be super fun with a little kid and be very docile and be very gentle. And I guess that's the big difference. It
is. They need to be able to be a workhorse. They need to be able to go and put their whole heart in it and give me what they got. They need to run faster. They need to stop that cow. They need to turn it on, and they need to turn it off, and they need to plug a hole and just sit there. Whether it's 2 minutes or an hour, I expect you to sit there. And another thing that horses struggle with is being left alone. When you're in a group of horses and they expect you to stay there and block a hole so the cows don't go that way, and everybody else leaves, horses, that's something they have to get over, is when everybody leaves them. And they need to. When I say sit right here, that means sit right here. I don't care what any of the other horses are doing. You're sitting here, and we're just chilling.
It's fun. I mean, being on my end of things, you were there when I rode, I don't know, I think it was George or Cash or somebody, and the stirrups didn't fit that great. I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
George didn't care.
He didn't care.
He didn't know.
He didn't know. He didn't.
You know what he said? You call this riding?
Whoops. But yeah, I mean, I was still able to ride, and I mean, he made me look good. And I think that's.
Well, I don't know if I'd go that far.
Well, he made me look better than another horse would have, and I think another horse that would maybe not have been a great idea.
An untrained horse will definitely show your flaws.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of fun that you could take that, even if somebody, because I don't know who buys horses, but I'm guessing not everybody is an expert rider, and not everybody is riding the mountains all the time. There are probably people out there who really want to have a horse, but they're really busy. They've got this other job that, you know, they're not necessarily going to spend a year or two on the mountain, and they're thinking, hey, like I've got this cool ranch, or, you know, whatever. I want to keep this horse here, and I want a horse that is going to be great for me, even if I'm not going to train them for a year doing these incredible things. So I don't know. I think that could be really a really cool thing for somebody that's doesn't have that kind of time.
Well, our horses, you'll hear people say like they have to lunge their horse before they get on, or if he's got a big break, they have to kind of readjust him. Our horses, in the wintertime, there's a lot of snow, so we don't do a whole lot of riding in the wintertime. And we'll turn them out, and in the spring, we'll get on them, and we'll go to work, and they're fine. They're good, because they know this is what we do. We go to work, we come home. We go to work, we come home, and whether it's in the arena or not. And the arena is really cool because you're playing, and some people might not appreciate that word because they're rodeoing, they're reining, they're cutting, and it's work. It really is work. But for me, I feel like it's a lot of fun, and you get to those little moves that the horse does. That's fun. That is so fun. And these horses, they really enjoy it. For you and George, he doesn't care who's on him. He doesn't care what we're doing. If we're inside, outside, he doesn't care.
Yeah, he's not as judgmental as Todd could be.
These horses are used every day. We raised George. George is 14 years old. We raised him, and he's gone to work every day. And so that's why he doesn't care. And this person that you described that maybe has another job, they can't afford that every day. They can afford to ride him on the weekend. They can maybe afford to ride him once a month. And so we use them every single day, and we try to build this great foundation. And so you can turn them out until the weekend. You can turn them out until the end of the month or whenever you can ride. And you expect them to be solid. You expect them to be sound. You expect them to be able to go. And that's the difference. That's why George doesn't care. George for instance, has done about everything that there is to do on the mountain. He's a great pack horse. He's a great saddle horse. He's a great camp horse. Most of our horses are broke to hobbles, so you hobble him and he's right there. You can go eat lunch. You can do whatever you want to do. Most people won't do that. Most people don't need to do that. But if he ever gets tied up in the wire, he's going to stand there and wait for you. He's not going to fight that because he's used to having his feet hobbled.
And not even staying there with wire or I know when I was 13 years old, I rode George in the mountains, and he was young. He was young, and he used to jump logs instead of just walking over them. And he jumped one log, and I wound up on the ground in front of him, and he just stayed there. And he looked at me like, "What are you doing on the ground?"
Well, and I know this about your horses. I mean, your horses are basically luxury animals. I mean, they're work horses, but also they're like I don't know if Cadillac had a pickup truck or something. I don't know. But I mean, that's essentially what I'm getting is that these guys are really on the high end. And that's what makes them so different is that you can have a horse stuck in something that would terrify another horse. And this guy's just going to be chill. So that even if an owner who's not out there doing, ranching every single day of his life, takes him out to ride, he knows, okay, if I get in a tricky spot, I don't have this like wild situation where this horse gets hurt, and the horse has plenty of experience on his own. He knows what he's doing, so you can enjoy your time with your horse, do what you want to do, and you don't have to even worry about the worst case scenario because it's not going to be that worst case.
And that's the good thing is that is a terrible ride. We've all had those rides that you are afraid of the blow up. You are afraid of the situation and what is he going to do with this and what is he going to do with that? And being able to take a deep breath and just enjoy it, and you don't have to worry about the blow up, that's worth $1 million right there.
So, and I'm thinking about cars, partly just because I told you guys I was just listening to the Elon Musk interview with Joe Rogan, and they take they emptied a Tommy gun into the Tesla Cybertruck. They just shot it up with a Tommy gun, and the bullets bounced right off everything, the glass and everything. And so Joe Rogan was sitting in his there's interviewing like podcasts like this, and he's like, "Hey, I've got a bow with the it's like 80-something pound bow. Let's see if I can penetrate that door." He thought he could, and Elon was like, "Yeah, let's go. I got it right here." And so they went out and they got it right there. Went and shot it into the door, and it destroyed the tip of the bow and just bounced right off. And Elon wasn't worried about it. So I think about like that's a luxury of luxury vehicles. Like you don't have to think about what happens to it. There is no worst case scenario. And I get the impression that's kind of like what your horses are like, where if somebody wants just a horse just to do the basic work stuff, yeah, you can go and get a lesser horse, and that's not a big deal. But if you want this animal that can go onto the mountains and do these really difficult tasks, and then come back, and then your kid hangs on him and you do a backflip off of his back. I think that's the big difference, and I think that's why your clients are really excited about your horses and what they can do.
I would argue a little bit of what you said. Yeah, you can go to the horse sale and you can buy a horse for a few $100s or a few $1,000s, and they'll hurt you. And so how much is a hospital bill? How much is a broken back? How much is, a life in a wheelchair? How much is, the list would go on and on. I don't mean to be a naysayer, and I'm not going to say that the more you pay for a horse, the safer he's going to be. But I believe that's more true than not. These horses are certainly a pleasure horse. They're certainly, you can get on them, their head goes down, they walk right out, they stop when you ask them, they'll let you get on, they'll let you get off. And the amount of risk involved is a lot less than a horse that you don't know, the free horse down the road or whatever. We've been hurt way more on horses that cost very, very little, or the neighbor calls and say, we can't ride our horse, can you come down and help us? We've been hurt worse with that horse than we ever have been with our own. So those more expensive horses, the chances of getting hurt are far, far less because we're with them every single day.
And it starts with the training and trying to get that education in us so we can train these horses. Tom Mallory, he's the one who's really helped us start the groundwork, and the groundwork is the foundation of a horse. And so 100 years ago, you would tie down a horse, you'd get on, they'd let him go and buck, and pretty soon maybe he'd stop bucking, and then maybe you could get a half a day's work in before he'd start bucking again. And nowadays, you start with groundwork, and you put him in situations before you even get on him. Let's get the buck out before I even get on you. One thing we do is with the halter, if you've ever seen a horse pull back, they'll break halters, they'll break lead ropes, they'll hurt themselves or you when you're around, because when they feel that pressure, instead of giving into the pressure, they'll pull back. And so on the ground, we'll yank on that lead rope. And so at first, he'll try to tip over backwards because he'll not give into that pressure. And pretty soon, he'll learn, when you yank, I'll give my head. And that's teaching a horse not to pull back. And so you can teach a horse not to pull back by tying him and having him fail 100 times, or you can teach him before he's ever tied that when that pulls, you give. And so groundwork is a must. It's that foundation before you even get on him. We're not going to get on a horse if he's going to buck. We put the saddle on him, we put ropes on him, we pull on the saddle and push on the saddle and get him as comfortable as possible with that before we even climb on.
I don't know, man. I've watched movies like Zorro where just jumping on a horse on the random seems to work just fine.
Oh, yeah.
You don't think that's a good idea?
Oh, try it. You try it. I'll watch.
We'll video. I think something that just came to mind was, I don't remember, maybe it was at Oren's birthday. You had brought out a bit, and we just started talking. And I think this is where you guys work together really well. And all of this stuff kind of comes together where you build a bit for the horse because of whatever need they have or whatever method you want to use for whatever part of training they're in, and I was really interested in that.
That's you.
That's you.
Well, every horse is different. We have some horses that have never had a bit in their mouth. We have horses that we start with certain bits. This set that we have now, I'm riding a sorrel horse that's never had a bit in his mouth. I ride him with a halter rope. Horses yield to pressure, and so the least amount of pressure I can put on him, the better I like it. Right now he's pretty green, and so I need to pull on him a little bit. I need to get him to turn and stop, and I tend to be a little bit heavy-handed, and so I don't want to ruin his mouth. I don't want to get him to get calluses in his mouth. So as you train a horse, those calluses come in their mouth just like they do on my hands. When I start off in the spring, I may not have a lot of calluses, but by the end of the summer, my hands are pretty calloused up. And that's the way a horse's mouth is. So we start off just as easily as we possibly can. But as you work that horse, the harder his mouth gets. And so we step up a bit, just a little bit more and a little bit more in increments, a little bit more. But we still try to ride him with the least amount of pressure that we possibly can. Just because horse A works with a certain bit doesn't mean horse B is going to work with that same bit. So we have a wall full of bits. It's a good thing I'm a bit maker. We have a wall full of bits, and it isn't a one-size-fits-all. Some horses work better on a leverage bit. Some horses work better with just a ring snaffle. But we have a variety there that we can choose from. Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, I think it's kind of beautiful that you do. Everything is so individualized. Everything is made to be gentle too. And I think that people care about where their horses come from, how they were treated. And I think that just speaks to the amount of work and effort and care and concern that you guys put into these animals.
When we go to the mountain, we might ride 10 or 12 hours. We might be gone dark to dark, and we might actually be on the horse 10 or 12 hours. Me personally, I don't want to have to ride in that horse's mouth all day long. My arms get tired. I want to ride with the least amount of pressure that I can ride him with. I'm more comfortable. He's more comfortable. And I do tend to be a little heavier handed than Amanda is. She's pretty soft. And so that bit makes all the difference in the world. I don't want to be in his mouth. I want him to put his head down. I don't want to look at the back of his head all day. Sometimes that comes with bidding, not always, but sometimes it does. You can teach a horse how to carry their head, and she does a great job with that. She's trying to teach me a little of that. I'm not very smart. But that, I don't want to ride that horse all day with his head all gathered up. My arms can't take that. I don't want to ride that way. So that comes from bidding. That comes from those long wet saddle blankets. After a while, you ride a horse that's pretty high-headed like that. After a while, that takes a lot more energy. And we can bid him up. We can put a bit in his mouth that he doesn't want to carry with his head up in the air like that. Pretty soon he'll get tired and he'll want to put his head down. And we don't have to do anything with our hands. He'll learn that on his own. So that day was at Spider we were messing with.
I think so.
So Spider cheats Oren. Spider is a 4-year-old pony, Gypsy Welsh cross, and he's Oren's pony. And he cheats Oren. He's broke real well, and he and Oren get along really well. But I don't use a chin strap on that horse because I want him to be able to get away from that pressure, because Oren,
He's little.
He's little.
He's learning.
And he'll drag him around, and he'll tie him up with the bridle reins, and he'll do some crazy things with him. And so I want the horse to be able to get away from that pressure if he can. Well, Spider knows that. And so when Oren starts tugging on him, Spider can get away from that pressure. He can open his mouth and he can get away from it. So we were changing up bits a little bit. That particular bit that I made for Oren's birthday for Spider, he had seen on the cover of a Western Horseman magazine that the man...
Mike Major, who won the Road to the Horse.
Right. And so Mike spoke pretty high of that bit. And so I Googled a better picture of it, and I made Oren that bit. It's made out of horseshoes, and it's got a chain for a mouthpiece. And it looks like it's very barbaric, but it isn't. It's real easy on the horse. And Mike has explained why that horse is so easy, or that bit is so easy on the horse. And I believe it. And Oren loves it because it was on the cover of the magazine, and because that's what Mike Majors rides.
Gentle is a key word. So Tom, when he was helping us with these horses, he said there's a stick. And on one end of the stick are the people who beg and ask and pray the horse will do what they want. And on the other end of the stick are the people who will beat it into them. And both are abuse. You need to be in the middle. And so that gentle comes in, and with the bits, you don't want to fight a horse all day long. And when you can pick up your reins and he just does it, just gentle, that is so fun, so cool. And you don't have to fight him all day long, and he's not jigging along and you're not yanking on him. And that gentle goes throughout the whole horse. And so nobody likes to ride a horse that when you reach for your hat, he shies away. That's not fun. That means the horse has been hit and head shy, and you're not going to be able to pet him. And, you know, when you drop stuff on the ground, and he's always thinking he's in trouble. Everything. Even when you don't do something, he always thinks he's in trouble. He always is looking for the discipline. And, yeah, sometimes he's going to need to say, you know, that's not okay. He's going to be disciplined, and he's going to need that, you know, we're not doing that. But he'll know the difference between being corrected and being abused.
You know, it's such a beautiful thing about working on harding ranches is that when we're with the horses, like, they're not afraid. Like, they'll come up and they'll say hi, and sometimes they want a little bit of attention, and I can, like, I don't know what I'm doing, so like I'm not used to that. Like, and it's really just a beautiful thing, because if they want to say hi, they just come, they say hi, and they're just really sweet. And you're right, they're not worried about who I am, what I'm gonna do to them. They're just I think they're just assuming I'm a friendly person that.
Curious.
Yeah, and it's a pretty cool thing, because these are powerful animals, and they're just so. I feel like I could go to a restaurant with this horse and just be like, "Would you like some?" And he'd just be very polite and eat next to me. And
Spider's been in the house.
Yeah,
in our house. Yes.
Yeah, and so I'm not even exaggerating when I say.
Was that with your permission, or was that?
I want to see your next client do that. I want somebody to buy Gunstock and then take them to a restaurant and then put it on Instagram.
I would love that. I really would.
He would go.
He would. And how he is, he'll drink. If you give him a bottle of Pepsi or something, he'll drink it. So
no way. I think this is gonna happen. That's our goal.
Gotta get that on video.
We got to get this horse to drink a soda in a restaurant and be better behaved than some people are.
Exactly. That's the other thing, is they do have ground manners. They will come and say hi to you, but they're going to respect your boundaries. And if you say that's enough, they respect it. That's too close, they respect it. Like, there is that ground manners. They're friendly, but they don't push it. They're not going to step on your feet.
Wouldn't that make such an amazing TikTok video?
He called a Mexican restaurant, and they went there for a birthday party the other day, and Oren went to a friend's birthday party, and they went in. They really catered really well to him, the Mexican restaurant there in Paonia. So we'll call them and ask if we can have reservations for two adults, one horse, and one child.
I think that's my goal for Gunstock.
We would go in there. Years ago, I had a yellow horse. We called him Ben, and he was the same kind of a horse. He was a whole lot like Gunstock. And I was in a hunting camp, and I was cutting firewood, and I heard this blood-curdling scream. I mean, the kind of scream that you think you're going to find somebody dead at the other end of the scream. So I went running over, and I did have a hunter in camp, and I knew that he was in camp, and I went running back over to camp to see what was going on. Well, he was inside of this cook tent, a 16 by 20 cook tent, and I could hear him in there. And so I slung the tent flap open and went in. And he was laying on his cot. He was trying to take a nap, and Ben had gone inside the tent and was tickling the guy's nose with his whiskers. He was kind of nuzzling his face, and that's what that man woke up to. He was scared. That's why he was not out hunting. He was scared of his shadow. So when Ben woke him up, he screamed to high heaven, and Ben just stood there in the tent looking at him like, dude, I'm here for the pancake flour.
Right. But could you imagine, like, what would a normal, like, I don't want to use the word cheap, but like a horse that didn't go through the experience and the training that one of your horses, you put them in a restaurant.
You're not going to get through the door. They won't. They won't walk through the door.
They won't even go inside. It's not even a bull in a china shop thing. It's just a bull outside the store.
Yeah, not going.
That's cool. That's really cool. So I had a question for you about. So this is something that you've mentioned to me several times that I think is interesting, and you've based it off of a quote, but the idea of a perfect partner versus just a trained horse. I know this is really important to you. Flesh that out for me. What exactly goes through your heart and mind when you talk about building partners versus training a horse?
So the quote you're talking about, I'm going to butcher it, but it's Taylor Sheridan in Yellowstone, and him and another character are riding in the pickup, and they're talking about what cowboying is, And Taylor Sheridan says, it's a man and a horse doing a job, trying like hell not to let the other one down. And that's all cowboying is. And that is so true. When I ride my horse, that will never be for sale, just so everybody knows, Waylon is my partner. And we have been in some terrible places, and I know he tries not to let me down. It's almost like he doesn't want to disappoint me. He gives me his whole heart and everything he has, and it doesn't matter what I'm asking, he is in for it. And that is what a partner is I don't want to let her down. How can I not let her down? How can I work my heart out so I don't let her down? And so that's what I want the other horses to be, is whoever buys them, I want them to be your partner, your best friend, somebody you can count on and they can count on you, and you know they're going to give you their heart and their soul.
So when I'm probably never going to own a horse.
You don't know.
I don't know. But like when you don't know horses, right? I just watched the movies, and it's like the guy who's running away from the gunfight and he jumps off, the second story building and whistles on his way down, and the horse catches him. I think that's what like everybody's like, I want that horse. And that's kind of like what I hear you say. It's like, okay, that horse is like hanging out waiting for you, and if you whistle, like he's gonna catch you. I mean, I don't know, like if there's a firefight or something going on, maybe not. But that's what I'm like. Your goal is that you're preparing a partner for somebody, and you're taking the steps to make sure that this person who's buying this horse, they're not buying some cheap horse. They're buying an animal that is gone through a lot of experiences so that they can be whatever it is that person needs them to be. And so they got to be matched up, and the horse is already trained and knows what they're doing. And so that's I guess a few extra steps than just training a horse to do a task.
In that scenario you're describing, Waylon would catch you. Gunstock would sidestep at the last possible second and then laugh at you while you're laying there on the ground. And that's why she would match the horse to you, because honestly, that's the scenario. Those two horses.
Waylon, for instance, last year we were chasing cows in a really brushy spot, and he's a big horse, and I could not get in where the cows were with him. So I had to get off and tie him. And when I was done with the cows, it was so brushy, I had no idea where he was. No idea. Like, I could backtrack, but you're like on your hands and knees through the brush. I lost him. I had no idea where I had tied him. I know it was in this vicinity, but it's so thick. Like, I have no idea. So I just called out, Waylon, where are you? And he goes, hey.
Wow.
He's like, don't forget me over here. There's just me. And that sounds so cheesy, but it's true. It's like, yeah, I'm right here. Like I can hear you. I'm right here. And they need to be along the journey with you, no matter what you're doing, whether it's in the arena, the trail, working cows, or just having fun. They need to be right there with you.
Wow, that is a whole different ball game than just owning an animal that can, do a task. That is a whole different thing. That sounds beautiful.
Don't forget, we spend 10 or 12 hours a day with these when we go to the mountain. Now, some days we spend 10 minutes or 30 minutes with them at home, but when we go to the mountain with them, these are our lives. We literally put our lives on the line with these horses. You spend that much time with them, and they are characters, and they are goofy, and they are serious, and they are all of those things, but they are our partner. We couldn't do our job without them. The dogs the same way. You comment about the dogs being under their feet. The horses know that those dogs are going to be under their feet. If they need to go from left to right and they can't get in front of or behind the horse, they run under the horse. And the dogs know that. The horses know that. We know that. They are our partners. We could not do our jobs without each other, but we couldn't do the jobs without the horses and the dogs.
And I'm guessing the horses, like, once you sell them to your clients, right? So you've got, I'm imagining this client somewhere, they have, maybe a stressful job or whatever. They've got like a lot on their plate, and they want a partner that they can sort of just go and do something that's away from all that work, all that whatever's going on in their lives. And then they're partnering up with this horse, and this horse is probably like, well, this is a lot easier than what Amanda used to make me do, or Todd used to. And they're probably loving it, right? I mean, I'm guessing they're like, yeah, I'll go on this ride with you, and I'd rather go have fun with you. And I'm guessing they enjoy it, and they probably love doing the arena work with your clients or your customers, and they probably really love being partnered when the match is right.
Oh yeah, when the match is right. If you want a horse with a sense of humor, George, he's a goof. He is a goof. And if you want a sweetheart, Cash is a sweetheart. He's the cuddler that, you need a shoulder to cry on. You can go to Cash. George, he'll let you cuddle him and he'll let you cry on your shoulder, but he'd rather play a game or pick up the toys that your kid's playing with, or he likes to play.
And so what's Gunstock then?
Gunstock is a puppy dog. He really is. If I could get him to be a trick horse, I don't know anything about being a trick horse, but he would be the movie horse that, you could shoot him and he would die, or I want to get him where he can paint. He loves to play with things with his mouth, which is a bad habit for a horse if he's going to bite or something, but he doesn't. He just explores with his mouth. And so I want him to learn how to paint on a canvas, because that's Gunstock.
Wow. And who knows? Maybe that's his perfect partner, is somebody out there who does Western movies and just wants this animal that can do ridiculous things and maybe make some money. And
That's what we need to use that canvas for.
Yeah.
There you go.
Gunstock.
Gunstock, how Gunstock started is he does not care about anything. He hasn't from day one. You cannot phase this horse. And so his first ride was bareback. And that to me is amazing, because when you have a new situation, you want to be able to hold on to something, and getting on a horse bareback with like nothing is very, very scary. And so where would you want me to go?
which I'm excited, because we already started talking about photo shoots with bareback horses. I think that's gonna be a fun thing.
What made you take that step, though, of this is going to be our first ride? I mean,
Because
just
of I know him. I would not do that. I have another horse, Cactus, and he's going to be a little different. If any of them are going to buck that first time, he's going to. There's no way I'd climb on him bareback. Not yet. Might be there. He hasn't started that training process yet. He's still young. But Gunstock, knowing his character, Oren was on him, and that gave me the idea is I put Oren on him, and he did not care. And I led, but walked him around, and he did not care. And he's just that type of horse. I thought, you know what? It's time. It's time for us to get on you. Let's just try it.
We bought these horses from a breeder in Montana. These three of them, three horses, and you couldn't touch them when we bought them. They were 2.5 years or 2 years old. So we actually ran them onto the trailer like you would cattle, because you couldn't put halters or anything on them. So we brought them home and unloaded them in the corral. And we started with, like the next day, we started messing with him a little bit. And Gunstock, we were able to put a halter on him, and I taught him to lead in about 20 minutes, just by pressure and release. He doesn't care. He wants to please. His mind is, he thinks he's a poodle. He doesn't know that he's a 1,000-pound horse. Not all of them are that way. Rowdy was not that way. He was one of them that came from the same home. They're kind of half brothers, kind of a thing, and a whole different temperament. Rowdy took days.
It took weeks for him to let me pet him and be okay with me petting him everywhere. It took weeks. And then getting him to learn how to lead. After we got there, he leads better than any other horse. But it took way more trust, way more effort to get that in him. And he's a horse that learns very, very fast. And his feet work is beautiful. And he loves to work. But he's not a cuddler. Like, he'll let you pet him, but he'd really just rather go to work. He doesn't really want you to hold him or pet him, so they're different.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you're saying, right? That you gotta actually pair somebody, because there's somebody who wants a specific kind of horse. And I think that's what I like about the way that our website is going, that we have so much media for each horse that we're selling. So you can already kind of get to know, if somebody's interested in buying a horse, they can kind of get to know, okay, this is, and it gets people thinking like, oh, okay, is that my perfect partner, or do I check out other horses? And that takes a little bit of getting to know the horse and taking time to really know the ins and out of each animal, so that we're not just throwing this animal at somebody that's not what they wanted.